Thank you, Chair and Co-Chair and honorable members of this National Dialogue Committee. Thank you for inviting us. Let me confirm, honorable members, that we did receive the invitation dated 24th of October to appear before this National Dialogue Committee, and we have a written presentation which we have submitted. Chair, outside the formal presentation, let me say we're all concerned, particularly the Ministry of Energy, at the cost of living, and energy being a major co-driver of inflation, because it is basically energy is employed in very many facets of our lives, from transportation to powering industry, and so on and so forth. So anything that impacts on the cost of energy impacts on the inflation and the cost of living. And therefore, we are, as you are, looking for ways every day to see how to bring down and make our economy a competitive destination for investors, where cost of living for our people who are employed in industry would be able to make this economy a competitive destination so that we can attract investors. Chair, let me say as opening remarks that the recent happenings, particularly the post-COVID recovery period, where we've seen inflation in economies like the US, Canada, soaring to a high of 9%, is something that is being seen maybe in the last, 22 years, where we see Fed raising interest from a low of 1.5% to a 5.4% today, and then therefore causing the challenge of dollar unavailability in that tightening of monetary policy, and us seeing particularly in the petroleum sector an availability of dollars because investors find it better to have their dollar sitting in investments, cash deposits, as opposed to allowing them to trade. But that is basically a post-COVID recovery of the inflation, where the US has decided to basically mop up the dollars they had issued during COVID to sustain their economies. And so that challenge is there. It's a global challenge. Those of us who trade in tea are unable to sell our tea in the international market because of unavailability of dollars in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Iran. And whereas we need those dollars to procure products which we don't produce as Kenya, like petroleum, pharmaceuticals, and all the other products. And lately, when we have a deficit in food because of the climate change issues and the fact that we have not been able to sustain food security, we need dollars to basically import food to sustain our people. And this has seriously impacted, and like I said, energy, petroleum alone, honorable members, do have a requirement of $500 million on monthly basis. We import products into Kenya worth $500 million on monthly basis. We bring in 8 cargoes, 4 cargoes of diesel. A cargo is 80,000 metric tons. We bring in 4 cargoes of PMS, that is super or petrol, and we bring in 1 cargo of DPK, dual purpose kerosene. And at a volume of about 750 cubic meters or meter cube, that is about $500 million every month. And to be able to, under the OTS system, honorable chairs, where the product will come into Kenya under OTS and be off-taken by the petroleum companies. Luckily, this product came off balance sheet. It is not traded by government, it is traded by the oil industry. And when it comes into the Kenya under the OTS system, what we do immediately is they have to offtake the product within 5 days. So you see a sacking of $80 million, $160 million because we receive 2 cargoes every 2 weeks. So we'll require to pay $160 million every week to be able to offtake 2 cargoes, and a cumulative of $500 million for the month. And that is why we had the late nomenclature of G2G, where we went into deferred issuance of LCs, which would service after 6 months. And what that entailed, Honorable Chair, was to basically say, instead of paying for petroleum products on spot purchase every 5 days when the ship docks to Mombasa, on an LC that is issued and unwound immediately, let's go into relationship with governments who would understand the situations that we found ourselves in, and do an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, do a framework agreement where we would bring products on deferred LCs that would service every 6 months, or every LC would be serviced at an age of 6 months, and that basically there will be no accumulation of paying 6 months at a go, but paying as they mature for every cargo. And we did that, honorable members, to basically delay the exiting of $500 million every month, to address with my colleague, the CS Treasury, the macroeconomic issues of ensuring how do we allow those $500 million to be available to the pharmaceutical, to be available to some debt swaps which had been, some swaps which had been done on the Kenya shilling, awaiting the improvement of the dollar liquidity or availability in the country. How do we deal with the food challenge, given the drought that ravaged this region because of the climate change issues for the last 5 years? And so we were able to negotiate with friendly countries like Saudi Arabia, who are the world leading. I think they control 22% of the world oil reserves. We did work with Abu Dhabi and ENOC to work on a framework agreement that would give us products on deferred LCs, and therefore delay the exiting of dollars for a period of 6 months. That, honorable members, did give us some benefits in terms of managing the interbank spread, the speculative tendencies which were there, where everybody of the over 100 oil marketing companies were running around town every day looking for dollars for the spot purchase, and exacerbating the depreciation. Because the Minister for CS National Treasury here will tell us how we've been able to slow down depreciation of the Kenya shilling from a high of 3% to some 1%, albeit the depreciation is still there because the tightening of the monetary policy continues, because of what the background I gave in basically the US trying to manage its inflation. And we've seen countries like China and Russia trading in ruble, trading in their currencies, almost doing a barter trade in efforts to dollarize their economies, and so on and so forth. I've mentioned about tea. Those of us who trade in tea currently are not able to sell our tea because those other countries out there don't have dollars to pay us, and so on and so forth. So this has been one thing that we've done, Chair. We were able then, under that framework agreement, to negotiate for freight and premium, because the petroleum products are traded on Platts. The OPEC countries do fixed prices every month on basis of products which is released to the market every month. So because oil is internationally traded and we've got Platts pricing, the only area you compete on is freight and premium. The cost of bringing the product and the premium which is charged by the oil marketing companies, which we did negotiate and got a fairly competitive rate. Kenya today enjoys freight and premium on diesel of $88 per meter cube, against what is obtaining today in the region, where we've seen a high of 260. I think currently Tanzania is having a freight and premium of about $160 per metric, per cubic meter or metric ton, if you do some literal conversion. So a high of 160 against Kenya 88. For PMS, we are currently having $95 per metric ton for super or petrol, whereas the region is having a fairly high rate, which I've shown in that document that I did circulate. And we've been, because we're dealing with a government to governments, agreed to that whenever the rates come down in the region, we are able to open that framework agreement and be competitive so that we are always below the pricing in the region. Albeit we can't do much on the international pricing of petroleum, which has soared from a $70 to $80 to $90. And I read an article in the Financial Times the other day, because of the Hamas and Israeli war, that that the international prices could go up to $150, and that would literally mean our products going to a high of 300 shillings per liter at the pump. We hope it doesn't get there. So we are almost managing scaling the heights as we chew the gum every day to make sure we do manage this frame. And because I did say, Chair, that these are products which are real drivers of inflation. And so we are conscious, honorable members, we are working on it on a day-to-day basis to make sure that though it's a global challenge, we do obtain the best pricing for our country. Kenya is a gateway for Uganda, Kenya is a gateway for Congo, South Sudan. And so we are not just managing for Kenya, we are trying to really obtain the best as a gateway because of our port of Mombasa, which services the other countries which are landlocked in the region. So far, what are the benefits? I've mentioned a bit that we've slowed down the depreciation, honorable members, chairs. We've managed the interbank. I think Professor Njuguna will tell us, and I'm quite happy today because when I go to these kind of meetings alone, and I talk to so much finance, and I'm lucky today to have the financial experts to support me to talk to the rate of depreciation, talk to the interbank, talk to what kind of swaps have been unwound, and the kind of profits which the multinationals have been able to expatriate, because it's also not good for investments when dollars are not available in the country. People like Safaricom doing business, and when they make a profit, they need to take their profit out. And that is really why they invest in the region. If you cannot take out your money, like sometimes in countries, our neighbors like Ethiopia, it becomes a disincentive for investors. So really, in terms of availability, in spite of the fact that it is still tight, if we did not do the G2G, the situation would have been really dire today. I don't know whether we could possibly be at 200 plus today. But the fact that we've been able to slow down sucking or exiting of $500 million every month from petroleum is a real big gain. What we're also able to do, honorable members, on petroleum is to basically say, over this period, why don't we then offtake the product as they land in Mombasa on Kenya shillings? Kenya shilling, which then sits in escrow account, earning on T-bill rate, and the T-bill rate will go to the pump over that period before we pay the international market. So the interest that is earned in the agreement that have been done, the commercial agreement that supports this transaction, is taken to the pump to support the depreciation. So the yield, actually T minus 2 goes to the pump, the minus 2 goes to the banks. We also, similarly for dollars, which we are holding, because under this framework, the dual purpose kerosene, which is really the aviation fuel, is taken on the dollar by the flight industry. And the product that goes to our neighboring countries is taken on the dollar. So we do get 40% product being paid on dollar, while the Kenya product is paid on the shilling. The dollar is also invested. I think we are sitting on some $1.2 billion today. We've already serviced some 10 cargos. And the dollar, like I said, is also invested on SOFRA minus 2. The yield also goes to the pump to support the industry in terms of the depreciation. So even as we sit today, except that we are unwinding the dollars, or rather removing the dollars as they mature, we are sitting on some $1.2 billion to support the repayments of the product as they mature, as the LC mature after 6 months, on the age of 6 months for that matter. So that's what we've done on petroleum. Honorable members, chairs, we are very conscious. We are working on it every day. We're looking at the region, like I said. If the freight and premium comes down, we open the contract with the 3 governments, Saudi, ADNOC, Abu Dhabi, and Emirates, to say, look, since you have this contract for 6 months, we shouldn't be paying higher premiums than what is obtaining in the region. When we look at the comparatives in terms of pricing in Tanzania today, in South Africa, go to UK, go to US, you'll possibly, I don't know whether we gave the figures there, but in some jurisdictions they are paying as much as 300 shillings per litre, where we are paying 200. So it's a global challenge. We are managing honorable members on a day-to-day, like I said, and we are looking for innovative solutions. What we've done lately is to renegotiate the freight and premium. Like I said, it's an open, it's not locked under the framework agreement, to bring it down. What we are doing after the proof of the system working, we've asked those countries to remove what we call confirmation. KCB alone has opened, I think, LCs worth about 800 billion. They are supported by Stanbic, supported by a number of banks, Mauritius Bank. And what has happened is, because of the risk and exposure of a bank not being able to pay, or the risk for that matter, there is need for confirmation, not reconfirmation. And because the system is working well, we are now talking to those governments to say, do we really need to confirm these LCs, which were priced at 0.7% of the cost of the, and we have negotiated to basically pledge the cash in the account today because the system is working, and therefore confirmation is removed. So we get another benefit of 0.7%, which would otherwise go to confirmation for the investment grade banks or the AAA banks who confirm and take the risk out of KCB in case of a liquidity challenge, or KCB is not able to pay for those or the risk taker for the LC issuing banks. So we are now removing. We are in the process of removing the confirmation, and we will subsequently see slight reduction on the cost of the financing facilities for this product. So that's what we are doing with petroleum. Unfortunately, there's nothing much we can do on the Platts pricing because they are set by OPEC. But on freight and premium, I can assure these honorable members and sitting that we are doing our best, and possibly Kenya is obtaining the best in the region because of the fact that the OTA system, the open tender system, is all employed in this G2G to be able to secure the support on this driver of inflation and cost of living. That's the much I would like to say for now. For petroleum, I think the details are in the paper which I've circulated. For power, because of time, power is another big driver. It's another really big driver, and we are conscious about the cost of power in this country. It's expensive.